Sin Fronteras, Western New York, Buffalo's media platform for Western New York Hispanics.
Producing bicultural content that informs, entertains, and inspires the forward thinking.
Sin Fronteras, Western New York, delivering bilingual stories,
hot topic conversations,
and the voices from our Latino community.
Sin Fronteras, Western New York.
La única producción contemporánea en español
y en inglés en la ciudad de Buffalo. Sin Fronteras, Western New York.
Your connection to cultural ties in Latin America
and hyperlocal news in the Western New York area.
Sin Fronteras, Western New York es para ti.
Welcome, mi gente, ¿cómo están?
Buenas y bienvenidos de nuevo al segundo episodio de Sin Fronteras, Western New York.
This is Samantha Lacha.
And I'm Lorenzo Rodriguez.
On Sin Fronteras, Western New York.
Samantha, we made it to a second episode. This is exciting. We passed the audition, hopefully. Hopefully everyone that's listened to our first episode last week enjoyed what they heard. Again, it was a great episode with Jonathan Rivera. We want to thank him and his staff for making it possible. We got a treat for you on this one. We got a jam-packed episode, if you ask me. I think we got a lot of news to cover, so I don't want to take up too much of our time right off the top because I think we should just get right into it.
Yeah, on this episode, we're going to dive deep into the stories that are shaping our world today. We've got a packed episode from developing news stories to in-depth conversations that you mentioned. We've got it all covered.
Like I said, the first episode I think it was a good start for us, a strong start. But we want to hear from you. I can't say that enough. We have a Gmail account, very professional Gmail account. Reach out to us, please. We want to hear from you, our audience, the stories, the comments. Are we doing a good job? Are we doing a bad job? Or do you want to change? Do you have a story that we should be highlighting or a voice that we should be showcasing on our program? That email, Samantha, is?
Sin Fronteras, Western New York @gmail.com.
There we go.
I can't say it enough. Both Lorenzo and I, we used to do this professionally for mainstream local stations. And for us, this is definitely, we're doing this for passion for our community. And we want to cover that. So I can't stress enough, please send those stories. What's happening in your barrio, in your neighborhood, in your community? We want to cover those stories because these are the stories that really mean a lot to us.
Also, they should be getting on-demand episodes shortly. Stay tuned. We will let you know where you can get those episodes later on repeat or re-airs. That's also coming in the coming weeks. But really excited about this venture. We got one under our belt. Let's go into number 2. Let's do this.
Number 2. And what a number 2 it is that has happened since the last time we spoke. So as we navigate through these headlines, let's turn our attention to the latest developments in U.S. politics. With the 2024 election season heating up, there's no shortage of drama and intrigue, from the campaign trail updates to legislative battles in Congress. Let's unpack this, the most pressing political stories making waves across the nation. And boy, oh boy, did you see this one coming?
No, I'm still trying to unravel everything that's been going on in the last month. This month of July has been, and I feel like we recorded our first episode and everything started still happening. And by that, I mean, you go back less than a month ago. And first off, we had the presidential debate between, at that point, presidential candidate President Biden and former President Trump. They went after each other in this very contentious a debate that also instilled a lot of doubt in the Democratic Party. We had that. We had an attempt on a president's life. We had a Republican National Convention that kind of like said they were unifying, but capped off by the fact that President Biden is stepping down from the race. And now we have Kamala Harris assuming being the presumptive candidate for the Democratic Party. We still have the DNC to happen, but it's pretty much she has the majority of the delegates to get the nomination already. As if the last 4 years or last 8 years haven't been wild enough. We're light speeding to another wild November. But
when the assassination attempt happened with Trump, I remember I was picking up food. What was it? Barbells. You ever eaten there? It's really good wings, by the way.
No, I have to.
Yes.
I have not.
So they make
Everyone
really
says
great
they have
wings.
good wings. Everyone's got the
Yes, this is true. And I'm extremely picky, but I would
barbells.
say
Okay.
they're pretty good. Anyways, I was picking up food, and then when I go to pick up food, I see on the television, I see the ticker running. And then I'm like, am I seeing this right?
Something out of the Twilight Zone, really.
And I'm like, no puede ser. And then I run out of the car and I tell my husband, I'm like, go on your phone, go on Twitter. Is it true? Or should I say X? I'm sorry, I can't say.
It's still Twitter to me. It's still.
Well, I think it won't be until like our kids they're 2 years old and they grow up and they only know it as
using
X.
Twitter and X.
If it still exists, probably won't exist. But yeah, I mean, I think this is something that in history that's gonna stay with me. Where I was is this actually happening? I couldn't believe, like, is this fake news? Anyways, where were you, Lorenzo, when this happened?
I was at a work event and I got a text. I got a text from a friend and I couldn't believe it. I thought, once again, this is a joke. This is something outlandish. Didn't expect it to be, and also didn't expect it to unfold the way that it unfolded. I mean, we lost the Secret Service director as a result of quote unquote their negligence, and we're still investigating it. And it's just, for me, the one big takeaway was how quickly we moved on from that. It was such a huge event. I mean, presidential assassination it's not a small thing. The last one to have an attempt on his life was President Reagan in the 80s. I wasn't of age to remember that, but I mean, things stopped. Our lives kind of stopped. Sporting events stopped. And here, it just kind of, I felt like we went to the Republican National Convention. We kept powering through, and then we had a new presidential ticket, and we keep moving. But I mean, we haven't had an incumbent president step down like this so close to an election since Lyndon B. Johnson in 1968. He dropped out because of all the stuff going on with the Vietnam War. It was a drastic circumstance that caused that. So here we are now, and with this J.D. Vance on the Trump ticket as a VP, and we'll see who Kamala picks pretty shortly, but yeah,
back it up. So then after that, then Biden drops out.
Yeah.
So and then that was the next big
glossed
shocker.
over that one too.
Yeah. So then when Biden, I'm like, do you think there's a connection there? Do you think a pobre viejito, like, he saw, he was like, estoy muy viejo para esto ya, you know, like, maybe he would be like the next person.
To his credit, it takes a lot to do that. There were a lot of mounting cries from within his party to step down. I don't know how this is going to play out now with Trump. The biggest criticism up until this point was President Biden's age, and now Trump is the old man. So
yeah, I mean, I think Biden, he devoted his life, his professional life, to this country. So I think there was a move of valor that he did to step back. What was best for the country, for the people. But at the same time, in Puerto Rico, like, I feel like he needs to just enjoy the rest of his life, like retire and
that
stop
office
working
ages you so much. We've seen every president come in, fresh face, and then just age immediately.
At the end of 4 years.
Yep. And he was going for another 4. That's no.
Stress is no joke. I think that it's a much stronger ticket because now, like you said, Trump is the viejito, and he has yet to meet her in person to do a debate.
But we're certainly going to get, hopefully, another debate now that we have another name on the ticket. But this is going to keep developing. It's going to keep changing up until November. We're going to get more. As we've already seen, we've gotten so many big, historic, seismic events happen, and I hate to say it, I think we're going to keep hearing more similar rhetoric, and just, it's going to ramp up until November. But
there's definitely going to be more bombas before November, so get ready.
Let's get on to the other news out there. Let's get down to South America, the Caribbean. La noticia que nos importa.
For Sin Fronteras Western New York, here are your headlines. Mexico has seen a significant rise in the number of immigrants from Central America and Haiti attempting to cross into the United States. The Mexican government is working with U.S. officials to manage the influx and provide humanitarian aid. The U.S. and Brazil have announced a new partnership aimed at combating deforestation in the Amazon. The agreement includes funding and technical support to help Brazil reduce illegal logging and promote sustainable development. The Dominican Republic has developed a groundbreaking semiconductor chip which efficiently converts AC to DC power, significantly reducing size and energy consumption. This innovation, created by Jorge Ortiz and Valerio Tripico, is set to revolutionize various industries and boost the country's tech sector. Political tensions in Venezuela have escalated following the recent election results, which saw President Nicolas Maduro's party claim victory amid widespread allegations of fraud. Opposition leaders have called for mass protests, leading to clashes with security forces in Caracas and other cities. International observers have condemned the election process, urging for peaceful resolution. The political crisis has exacerbated the nation's ongoing economic hardships, deepening the state of unrest. And from the Associated Press, we have local sound of opposition candidate and leader María Corina Machado.
En todos los sectores del país, en todos los estados del país, en todos, ganamos. Y todos los que estamos aquí, el mundo entero, lo vimos en las calles. Sabemos lo que hoy pasó. Y déjenme decirles algo. Hemos estado asegurándonos que toda la información de este proceso se recogía y se reportaba. Desde temprano en la mañana habían 3 sondeos a boca de urna independientes y autónomos que comenzaron a dar resultados contundentes, impresionantes. A lo largo del día también, con los quick count o los conteos rápidos, fuimos monitoreando cómo iba la participación, hora a hora. Esto es una participación histórica. La cantidad de gente que fue a votar hoy. 4 quick count, conteos rápidos, autónomos e independientes, que dieron los mismos resultados que las encuestas de boca de urna. Adicionalmente, en este momento tenemos más del 40% de las actas. Debo decir algo, el 100% de las actas que transmitió el Consejo Nacional Electoral las tenemos. No sé dónde salieron las otras. Todas las que transmitieron las tenemos. Y toda esta información coincide. ¿Saben en qué? En que Edmundo González Urrutia obtuvo el 70% de los votos de esta elección. Nicolás Maduro el 30% de los votos. Esta es la verdad. Y es, mis queridos venezolanos, la elección presidencial con el mayor margen de victoria en la historia. Felicitaciones. Felicitaciones.
You know, I think what's going on right now, unfortunately, it's gonna get a lot worse before it gets any better.
Well, we've been seeing this now for what, close to a decade plus, because the origins of this begin and stem with Chavismo and his predecessor, Maduro's predecessor, Hugo Chavez. Maduro was Chavez's vice president. He took over once he passed. Since 2015, he's been running in special elections. And in every one of these, it seems like there's always some controversy. There's always cries from the people of Venezuela that the elections don't add up. They don't seem fair and just. Maria Corina, that we heard of before, she was at one point a presidential candidate running against Maduro. And then because of technicalities, because of not declaring food assets in her election documents, she got removed from the ballot. It's semantics and tricks that keep being employed. I mean, the stories that are coming out from Venezuela are alarming. You've got opposition members from their security that are getting arrested. The United Nations have called to look into it because of arrests made on children. It's just
widespread. It's just everyone has taken to the streets. Have just gone wild.
You also got diplomats, foreign diplomats that have been expelled already from the country as a result of them speaking out on just the validity of the election results. Maduro has undertaken a lot of tactics, I feel like, in the last few years to hold on to this power. And you have every so often, every 6 years, their elections, their terms run 6 years. There's another potential opposition candidate. This seemed like, from the people I know from Venezuelan community, this seemed like a tangible feeling that something could be changed. But
this was the breaking point. So I think that people had two choices. I think they either decided, okay, we continue to, leave and go to other nearby countries, whether it's other Latino countries bordering Venezuela, or even, making the trek down all the way down to the Caribbean as well, because I know there's a lot of Venezuelans that are living in DR right now as well. Or they fight, and they fight back, and they take back what's theirs. So they have two choices, really. And I think, again, unfortunately, it's probably going to get worse before it gets any better.
And if people don't think that this is that big of an issue, I would like to point out that Venezuela is it has been a massive economy. It's been suffering in the last number of years because of some of these policies. But it's also, you mentioned it, the influx of immigration and immigrants that are going to come from Venezuela as a result of this. It's been that way for a few years now. People have emigrated and come to this country as a result. And we will keep looking at it throughout the coming weeks and as it develops, because it is a developing story. I don't think we've heard the last of it. We haven't heard the last of Maduro yet. He's a very desperate person because he's got outstanding charges potentially for drug trafficking and corruption charges that have been levied against him. And he's trying to hold on to whatever power he can, I feel like. We're going to keep hearing about this in the coming days and weeks, and we'll be here hopefully reporting on it. So, all right. And I guess we try to transition, we try to segue from that into our big guest this week. And for this episode, I got the chance to sit down with two cultural leaders in the Buffalo, Western New York area and the Hispanic community. I got a chance to speak to Wilmer Olivencia Jr. and Charlie Torres. Wilmer is the organizer and person in charge of the Mucho Olivencia Center. Also, the very well-known Greasepole Festival that's held every year. It just took place last week. It's a staple here. I was able to go and see it firsthand. It's a big cultural touchstone here in the Buffalo area. And then Charlie Torres is the president and organizer of the Puerto Rican and Hispanic Heritage Day Parade. That's coming up now on August 17th. I got to speak to these two cultural leaders to kind of get their ideas about the Puerto Rican community, the Hispanic community of Western New York. And yeah, I enjoyed my time with them. I've said it before, you can't go anywhere in this town without running into a member of the Puerto Rican population. And it's alive and thriving out here. It's one of the strongest nationalities that we have in the Latino umbrella of Western New York. And today I'm speaking with two gentlemen who are very tapped in, are very much a part of keeping that Boriqueño pulse pumping. I'm joined thankfully by Wilmer Olivencia Jr. and Charlie Torres. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome to Sin Fronteras, Western New York.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And Wilmer, I'll start with you. You are currently the Director of Street and Sanitation for the City of Buffalo. You're the president of Mucho Incorporated, the grandson of the late, great Mucho Agustin Olivencia. We'll get to him and his legacy and everything that he started here in this fine city. And Charlie Torres, you currently are working at Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center. You are the head of the Puerto Rican Hispanic Parade of Western New York, former law enforcement. Also have to throw your wife some shine because Betty Cabo Torres, first Latina judge in Buffalo history. We're all about celebrating our accomplishments, and that's a big one here. So welcome, gentlemen. I just wanted to give everybody a little heads up of who we're speaking to here today. But like I said, the Puerto Rican experience, the Puerto Rican culture is alive and well here in Western New York. We just celebrated a tentpole event here for Puerto Ricanos, which is the Greasepole Festival, the infamous Greasepole Festival. I think we're going to start with there because first thing everyone told me as a new transplant, as a Hispano here in Western New York and Buffalo specifically, you got to go to the Greasepole Festival. It's a thing. You can't avoid it. Wilmer, tell me about the Greasepole Festival, as if I didn't know anything about it. What is it for the uninformed, uninitiated?
So the Greasepole Festival, I like to compare it to the St. Paddy's Day parade in the sense that on St. Paddy's Day, everyone's Irish, or they celebrate the Irish culture. Here for the Greasepole Festival, everyone's Puerto Rican. It started back in the late '60s. Something that my grandfather, the late Agustin Pucho Olivencia, saw in the island of Puerto Rico at one of the fiestas patronales in his hometown of Olmigueros. It was something that when he migrated to Buffalo, he had said, what can we do to celebrate our culture? What can we do to let Western New Yorkers know that the Puerto Rican community is here and alive in the city of Buffalo? So it started off as a one-day event, something that they'll have some local bands participate and play music. There was a few food kioscos that, it was just mom and pops that said, I make the best pastelillos, or I make the best arroz con gandules, or,
So it's like how every Buffalo bar does best buffalo wings.
That's right.
There's somebody that lays claim to the best arroz con gandule.
Yes, sir. So the festival started with music and with food and dance, something that brings, people from all over to come. But the main attraction was the Greasepole competition. For those who've never seen it, it's a 35-foot telephone pole filled with car grease, and it's the competition consists of a team of 5 members.
When you say just that alone, it's a lot to take in. It's just a 35-foot pole with grease all over it, car grease.
Car grease, yes.
Slippery as heck.
Slippery as heck. There's a sand pit at the bottom, and it's the first team to make it to the top in the shortest time frame wins the prize. Back then, in the late 60s, it was probably maybe one team that would do it. And as it grew, now we have sometimes 5 or 6 teams that participate. It was an event that back then was for free. They didn't win anything, but just the opportunity to say, I won. I was a participant and we won, or we made it to the top. Now we have a cash prize that we offer the participants of the event. We had both men and women participate in the competition, and we've had some celebrities as far as Victoria Hone, she had an extreme sports segment, participate in the actual competition. We've had gentlemen from Army, Navy come, and the Latinos here of Team South Park, I got to give it up to them. These guys have, they're like the New York Yankees climbing the Greasepole. They have so many wins. They ran out of fingers and toes. But great competition. Definitely something that you want to, add on your bucket list to see if you're new to the city of Buffalo.
You mentioned you had some servicemen and women that have partaken in the past. I feel like that's almost like a disqualifier, because the immediate thing that I know I equate it to is the naval cadets, the plebes climbing up to the top of the Herndon Monument in the Naval Academy. Like that's and you see the pictures of that. It's a lot of people, throngs of people just pushing up trying to reach to the top. If you haven't seen it, folks, it's a must do, whether you're Hispano or not. If you're Anglo, if you're anybody, you come on down and experience the event. You gotta wait till next year, unfortunately, but it is a one of a kind. And Wilmer, why Greasepole? Where did that stem from?
So there's, I believe, 78 towns in the island of Puerto Rico, and they all have this little fiesta that they do to celebrate whatever they're known for in their town. The competition was something that my granddad saw, in the town that he grew up in. But if you look up Greasepole competitions, it happens all over the world, in the United States.
Not exclusive to Puerto Rico.
No, not at all. In Boston, they have a vertical pole that it's over water, and they have to run. It's just one person. In Canada, they have the actual Greasepole climb like we do here in Buffalo. So we've had Canadians participate, and they won, quite frankly. And Team South Park was really upset. But they had a method to their madness, and they really they won their trophy and they ran out of it.
You tried it?
I have not tried it. No. My uncle, my dad, they tried it. I skipped the generation, so I don't think my son's going to try it either.
Well, like I said, it's a must see if you're out here in Western New York. The Greasepole Festival is one of a kind, even though it's done and imitated other places. We put our own flair also because we have our own sazon on it.
Without a doubt. It's grown from a 1-day to a 3-day event. We have over 25 food vendors. We have artists that come from Puerto Rico, Florida, New York City, Rochester, local artists here from Buffalo. We've done car shows. We've had 3 high school seniors or college freshmen on scholarships. We like to acknowledge our community leaders and our sponsors that see the value in providing enrichment of our culture here in the city of Buffalo. So yeah, it's definitely an event that we look forward to every year. This year was an awesome event. We're already starting to prepare for next year.
And as far as preparations and big events coming up in the Puerto Rican population and Hispanos, also Western New York, the Puerto Rican Hispanic Day Parade of Western New York. And Charlie, that's your department, that's your baby. How did that come about? How did you get involved with that initiative? And because correct me if I'm wrong, you come, like I mentioned off the top, come from law enforcement, totally different, criminal justice field, and then a parade.
Right. So this is more than just a parade. We're celebrating our 22nd annual Puerto Rican Hispanic Day Parade this August 17th. Started over 22 years ago by a group of Latinos that saw a Harvard study that showed that our kids lived among the highest poverty and lowest educational achievement. So 22 years ago, when you turned on the news here in Buffalo, what you saw were the negative things that these news stations would put. The fires in the community, drug dealing, the raids, nothing positive. We've had this great festival, the Greasepole Festival, now for over 50 years. And they would highlight it, but, not to the extent that they should. So it was decided that we needed to do something more to lift the self-esteem of the children in our community. So one way to do it was to celebrate us, celebrate the accomplishments of our Latino community, and those individual accomplishments become our collective accomplishments, so that when kids look at that parade and they see the firemen, the police, the lawyers, the judges, directors, they know that they too can achieve those accomplishments if they worked a little harder, if they studied a little more. So that's our focus. With that, when people come from all over Western New York, Syracuse, and Ohio, Pennsylvania, Southern Ontario, and they come and they see this, our elected officials start looking, and they don't realize, in the early years, they didn't realize how big this community is. When you get this many Puerto Ricans and Latinos together, we do a lot of loving. There's a lot of hugging, a lot of flag waving, a lot of noise, a lot of great music. And they kind of look at it and say, what can we do? Because a lot of times as an elected official, they look at the voting records. Our community is not in one district. It's not in two districts. It's all over. We're very widespread. But when we come together, we can change the dynamic of these communities. So now these electeds come and they see it. And by coming to our events, whether it's the Greasepole, the Puerto Rican Hispanic Day Parade, it's showing our community respect. And
it's a big voting block.
And with that, they see that it's a big voting block, and we're able to help the community a little more through that visualization.
It's something that we're going to touch upon it a little bit later, but your grandfather, Wilmer, was all about civic engagement. And I feel like that's been a conversation for not just Hispanos, everybody in general in the last few years, is local politics, local representation matters a great deal. And to know that it's nice that politicals know that we are here and we're an important part of the community, but you touched on a very important part is that our youth gets to see what we're able and capable of on a positive level. I love driving down Niagara Street and seeing all the banners of notable Hispanos, because it's history, and it's our history, and it's important that the youngins, the youths, as my cousin Vinny would say, are aware that we've done a lot and continue to do a lot in this country. I think it's a fantastic initiative. It's great because it's welcoming for me as a outsider some years ago that I got here to see that there is that abundance of us out here. But what would you say are some of the things you look forward to in the festival, the days leading up, the event itself? What can we look forward to?
So just as the Greasepole, we work on this all year round, getting the funding, looking for acts, ways to engage our community. We give over 1,000 backpacks a year to our kids, books. We have a partnership with Goya Foods that donates about 7,000 pounds a year now to our event to distribute in our community. And because of the partnerships we've developed with these organizations, when we had the blizzard last year, Goya picked up the phone and called us. And they said, hey, we've seen what's going on in the news. We see buffaloes getting hit. How can we help? Without these events and without the popularity and engagement of these events, who knows if something like that would happen. So that phone call led to over 30,000 pounds of food being delivered within days. As you know, many of the food pantries that serve the impoverished in Buffalo, their shelves were bare. It was hard for the regular stores to get food supplies. But Goya made it happen and sent this food that we were able to distribute in the most needed communities. So these are the kind of things that these events lead to. We look forward to continuing our partnerships to be able to continue to provide that kind of stuff.
The collaborations that we've developed throughout the years just have been beautiful. The fact that, you could have two different organizations coming here and working together, sharing ideas, sharing, resources, and just saying, how can we do this to improve our community as a whole? This isn't about, one organization trying out to the other. This is about how can we work together so that, we can make this an event for everybody to participate and have a great time.
I feel like it's very indicative of us, nosotros Hispanos. We like to have the communal feel. Like it's, we were talking before the interview, like my community back home is still very much a part of me because I'm Cuban. I have that identity and it still very much draws me back home. But when I got here, finding others that spoke the language, that listened to Oro Solido, or just hearing, hearing something with a beat on the radio is just something. It's unique, and when you come from a place that you don't have that, it's so important for others to see themselves in the other and also in the community. So.
Absolutely. And, these events, when social media, when the media picks up on it and advertise it, you don't know who you're going to touch, right? So years ago, we had our theme was El Corazón, orgullo, being proud. I get a phone call from a gentleman in Toronto saying, hey, I read about your parade. I heard about it. He was actually Puerto Rican, but then wasn't raised in the U.S., was raised in Canada. But he wanted to extend that to his kids. So he came, stood with me the whole parade, basically watched all that, listened to the music, loved it, showed his kids that, and was actually engaged throughout the whole thing. So, that was a special circumstance for us to find somebody like that who was looking for what you described. You feel that little heartbeat, or there's something more to just who you are. And it brings you back to your grandparents, where you connect with them through that music, that food, that laughter. And it was great to just see that come alive from somebody who didn't have that.
It's got to feel great to provide that experience.
We have at our festival people that make their vacations or family vacations around it. When is the Greasepole Festival? I want to make sure that we're going to have a family reunion, because that's where we're going to be able to meet all of our family members and friends that we grew up with. Because let's face it, a lot of people may grow up in Buffalo, and 20 years later they're living somewhere else.
They don't end up in Buffalo like me.
They do. Some do. But the reality is that a lot of them say, I want my kids to experience what I experienced as a kid. I want to be able to see the growth in the city of Buffalo. When I live in Texas, I live in Florida, I live in Puerto Rico. They don't, to my knowledge, I don't know the Greasepole competition that still exists on the island. I try to visit as much as I can, at least once or twice a year, and I look for the Fiesta Patronales to say, do they have a Greasepole competition? And none of them do. So it's becoming more and more difficult for us to find teams, just because it's a tradition that was from back in the day, per se.
So the culture, the younger generation, it has to latch on to it.
Yeah, I think our festival keeps that pulse, as you said earlier, beating. And the ones that grew up here watching it, they try to continue the tradition. So yeah, it's definitely something that we're excited to be a part of, and we're excited to continue the tradition that our forefathers left us, many years ago.
And I think we're happy that the South Park team is still young guys, because they might have another few more years of there. I remember one competition a few years ago where it was a bunch of what appeared to be mountain climbers. So they came in, they had carabiners on their shorts. I mean, I'm like, oh, these guys are pros.
They look like pros.
And nothing on our guys, on our kids. These kids had broken T-shirts, shorts that came down to their knees after they got pulled down, climbing each other. But they still won. Yeah,
we've had electeds that have been in the White House that have come to visit and participate in the Greasepole Festival, and you would see the Secret Service saying, "Hey, we have to go to our next event," and the individual will say, "No, I'm never going to see this again.
I got to see who.
We're going to see this. We're going to watch this till the end." And it was just an awesome experience.
That's awesome.
To see this person that.
Wait, you can't just mention a White House official. You got to drop a name.
So Hillary and Bill Clinton definitely have participated. And said, I want to.
And every day a U.S. president and first lady come in.
They weren't together. So I'll clarify that I don't think that they ever. Very few times that they've flown together, but she was definitely present there. And he did come to our center to talk. Sure.
You mentioned briefly. Charlie, as far as the movement to encourage the youth to be the best they can, to aim high. The festival also has used to have a Miss Boricuan pageant.
Correct.
And now that's been rebranded, it's been redone to be the Miss Boricuan Leadership Development Program.
Correct.
And there's a boys component. Can you
correct, the Junior Grand Marshal. So what happened is, we had the Miss Boricuan pageant. Over the years and with the Me Too movement, we became more sensitive. It became harder to recruit females. We don't want them to just think that it was
beauty pageant.
a beauty pageant and sexualizing females, that it was more about education and their self-worth. So it kind of geared more into that mentorship component. So we still give scholarships 15 to 19, C plus or better. They can go to our website and our Facebook page to look at the requirements. It's a PRHDP, or Puerto Rican Hispanic Day Parade of Western New York, on Facebook, and Borinquen on Facebook as well. And we'll give them the guidelines. It's an essay now, followed by an interview, and then we link them up with mentors. So that's with the females and with the males. The male component actually started because at the end of one parade, with the pageant, we would have a horse-drawn carriage, and at the end of the parade, this young boy comes up to me, Amelida Weinman's son, and says, "Hey, what do you guys do for boys?" And I looked at him and said, "You know what? You're absolutely right." Shortly after that, we started the Junior Grand Marshal program for young men, and we have Francisco Guzman, who's Deputy Commissioner in Buffalo, and Benny Crespo, who spearheaded that initiative, and we've been doing it now for several years. And again, same thing, it's an interview process followed by mentorship.
Can't say we're stuck in our old ways. We just have to evolve and change the way we look at things. But the promotion of scholarship and advancement and just leadership potential, I think you hit it right on the head. It's good that change happened, I believe.
And it was, through the committee and through the young ladies that participated. We do a survey afterwards, briefing with the committee members, and it just kind of evolved to that. And it's an award-winning program, and we just enjoy doing it.
At the festival, we look to acknowledge 3 students, high school seniors or college freshmen, with a scholarship in honor of some of our founding fathers. So the late Agustin Pucho Olivencia, Carlos Olivencia, and Sylvia Rodriguez, which is, she was known to everyone as Abuela. She was everybody's Abuela. Everybody would say bendición, Abuela to her. But leaders that helped build, knock down the trees so that we could have, the positions that we have today, and so that we could have the opportunities that we have today. So this year, we'll be continuing that legacy with honoring, those 3 individuals.
Yeah, and the Olivencias, they are pillars of our community, from Pucho to Chito Olivencia, who's out there doing his thing, and I don't know, to his father, who's a war hero, legit, to his uncle, I don't know if I ever told you, but was my guidance counselor in college.
Look at that.
Carlos,
Well, you guys you've read some of my notes, I feel like, because the next thing that I was wanting to touch on is the impact and the mission of the Agustin Pucho Olivencia Center and Pucho Incorporated. Obviously, I think it starts with your grandfather, and then it's once again the lineage and the respect for what came before us. You have kept that mission alive and going. Can you explain a little bit more of what the Pucho Olivencia Center means to the Hispanic community of Buffalo and what the mission is for?
Yeah, so the Agustin Pucho Olivencia Community Center its original name was Centro Puertorriqueño. Back when they attempted to apply for some funding, the big question that they always would receive was, well, do you only service the Puerto Rican community? And they said, no, we service everybody, They said, well, you have to change your name then. So it then was later changed to PRACA, P-R-A-C-A, the acronym, which stood for Puerto Rican American Community Association, which then incorporated everyone, right? As my grandfather retired and decided to move back to Puerto Rico, they renamed the building in his honor, and now it maintained as the Agustin Pucho Olivencia Community Center. How did that come about? When the first Latinos first moved here, my grandfather was a musician, and he wanted to run a location to throw a dance. So he contacted the establishment and said, "Hey, my name is Mr. Olivencia. I'd like to rent your place to host a dance." And they said, "Sure." So my assumption is that they may have thought that maybe he was Italian or of some other ethnic origin. But when he went to fill out the contract, he was basically kicked out and said, "We don't rent to your kind. We don't want you here. You'll never come back." That's what kind of lit the fire in his belly to say, we need to build our own place. So how the heck did they do that? A bunch of...
They created a monster.
Yeah, young Latinos that, were new to the Buffalo area to say, let's get together and, let's look to do some fundraising and let's build our own place. So I believe it took like 3 years. but they were able to go to work, get out of work, and actually lay the bricks that where we participate and where we have events today, built by the people for the people. So it's a beautiful thing. Casimiro Rodriguez is definitely a community leader here. Got to witness it firsthand. The people would line up at my grandfather's house to say, "Let me drive you. Let me, I want to see, how is it that this movement is going?" And it was just huge. It was something that he was definitely ahead of his time. But
and it's contagious, right?
It is. It is. So that's what started it, and here we are, 55 plus years later.
55, and it's a shining beacon of Hispanidad in the community. It's on Swan Street, if I'm not mistaken.
261 Swan Street, correct.
You got your merengue nights, salsa merengue nights that you can go and learn a step or two, do la rueda. You got, what other events take place at the center?
So,
other than Greasepole.
Yeah, so the Greasepole is our biggest fundraiser. It's what, keeps us, to keeping the doors open and providing the services that we do. On Wednesday nights, if anyone is in the Buffalo area and they're looking for an awesome salsa class, Fanny with Baila Salsa does a tremendous job. We get people from all over the world, looking, that if they're interested in taking a salsa class, definitely our place is the place that pops up first for that. You would think that you're at a nightclub on a Friday night and it's a Wednesday.
Are you getting non-Hispanos out there?
Tons of non-Latinos
yes.
That are participating. You have the people who are looking to get married and they want to learn how to dance, right? You have the divorcees that they've been out of the dating game for a while and they want to go there. You have the seniors that retire and they say, "Man, I just want to do some exercise," and and then you have the guys that like to drink their medalla, and their Corona. And so I just want to come and hang out, have a beer. It's a location. It's like Cheers. Everybody knows your name after about maybe 5 or 10 minutes. During our salsa night, we also have the Gabriel A. Rodriguez Post 1928, who's housed there at the Mucho Community Center. They purposely have their meetings. I may be getting these guys in trouble, but they purposely have their meetings on Wednesdays because they know that there's going to be a crowd there. They know that there's going to be action, right?
No trouble there. It's just getting. Yeah. They know the crowd.
They do, and they sit at the bar. Some participate in the dance class, but most of them just like to people watch. And welcome people in. Mm-hmm. Buy that young man a drink, buy that young lady a drink, and they're like, "Who sent that to me?" They're like, "That guy right there." And, "Hey, what's your name?" And before you know it, everybody knows everybody, and they're like, "Man, I've never felt so at home." If I got a nickel for every time somebody would tell me, "I'm not Puerto Rican, but when I come here, I just feel like if I'm back home," if it's Argentina, if it's Cuba, if it's Colombia, wherever, they just say, "Man, it's like a certain vibe that, it's just so welcoming that, we just love coming here." So our Wednesday nights are awesome. We have a Halloween event for the kids and for the adults. Just
Three Kings as well?
Three Kings is huge. We service thousands and thousands of kids. We work collaboratively with all of the different Latino organizations. If it's Puerto Rican Hispanic Day Parade of Western New York, HHC, the Hispanic Women's League, the Gabriel Rodriguez Post, just to mention a few, we all come together and say, how can we work together to help these kids? What makes our event very distinctive from others, because, in the city of Buffalo, you have a lot of, not-for-profit organizations or, churches or individuals that say, we want to help the lower income families with, on how they like Christmas or Three Kings. What makes ours so distinctive is that not only do the kids get a couple gifts apiece, but the parents, could win things. We have a free raffle where kids are walking away with Power Wheels or bicycles or iPads, more higher end gifts. This year, or this past Three Kings, we had a lot of asylum seekers. They came. They had nothing. When they won a $50 gift card or $100 gift card to Wegmans, their tears just came down. It was like really emotional. People have different highs per se, right? Some people like to work out, or some people like to, dance or whatever. I think my adrenaline thing is helping people and watching them, put the smile on their face. If it's with dancing, if it's with food, if it's with cultural enrichment, whatever. But definitely that center provides that time and time again.
We spoke about your father, but Agustín Pucho Olivencia, a Borinquenier. I don't know how many folks know about that legacy of the Borinqueniers, the 65th Infantry Regiment, if I'm not mistaken, in the Korean War. You mentioned a little bit of the resistance that he was met with when he wanted to do his own venue. Can you explain a little bit about the history of the Borinqueniers for those that are unaware?
So I'm very limited, but from my experience, the stories that I've heard, he fought in the war. He was assigned to the 65th Infantry. He was able to travel. He learned English, and it's what helped him when he came here to Buffalo to migrate. A lot of our Latinos that left Puerto Rico or wherever, language was always a barrier that prevented them from progressing. Right, working in the farms of North Collins, because he spoke English, he was able to serve as like a mediator between the farm owners and the workers. But Buffalo then became the city that they would come to buy their clothing or buy their food. And he migrated here to Buffalo, made Buffalo his home. Brought his wife and his 3 boys. The rest is history. You know what I mean?
It's the steel industry and farming that brought a lot of us out here. And when we talk about Mucho, it's important to touch on it because he also gave a big sacrifice to his country. So did the rest of the Bucaneers. They didn't get the same respect at the times. I know there's a monument now, thankfully, at the Veterans Memorial Park, and it's great that we honor that legacy.
I do.
We touched on the importance of our cultural identity and our origins. I like to always end our conversations kind of getting to know a little bit about what drives you in that regard. How you got here. I mean, Wilmer, you mentioned it. Your grandfather was the one that planted the flag here. Charlie, I'm curious how you ended up here in Western New York. How your family's been here. How did one get to Western New York of all places from Puerto Rico?
Sometimes I wonder that myself. So I was born in Puerto Rico, in Cabo Rojo. We moved from there because they had a lot of family in New York City. So you get a lot of the Hispanic community here that has kind of gone through New York. Mm-hmm. You came through Miami, but
the big city was too big.
Yeah, a lot of New York City. So I was in New York City till I was 15. My mother came here in 77, in 78, right after the blizzard. My mother came the following summer. As you see now that you've been a pseudo-Buffalonian for a few years now, our summers are beautiful. Mm-hmm. So that's what she came and witnessed. She was raising 3 kids on her own. She was also raising my cousins. So there were 6 of us in New York City. So she's like, Buffalo, New York, I got to get these kids out of the rat race.
Maybe.
And moved us up here. And, I've been fortunate enough, in my career with the state police to be able to move anywhere in the state. And I always came back to Buffalo. It's a great community. It is a city of good neighbors. We have a diverse city and growing Latino population. And with events like the Greasepole that just happened, it still gives you that sense of being home. New York's only 6 hours away. I go there. I go there periodically, and after about 3 or 4 days, turn around and I'm glad to be back home. You get your fix.
As far as our population, the Latino population out here, what do you think is the biggest concern, in your opinion, to us? Like we should be concerning ourselves with, or should put our efforts towards?
I think it's just recognizing history. A minute ago we were talking about the Bucaneers. What we failed to mention was that was part of the government's segregation. Of keeping Hispanics in one group, keeping the Tuskegee Airmen as another group. And we need to recognize that through these valiant efforts of these soldiers, people recognized that they weren't different than the other soldiers. Not only that, they exceeded. These soldiers won Congressional Medals of Honor and Medal of Freedoms. So by recognizing these opportunities that they created and seeing what else can be created, that's what we want to instill on our kids so that they can know that they can continue to move forward to achieve these things like being a commissioner and as we have in the city here, so that they know that they're not limited in their dreams.
Yeah, I echo your sentiments, Charlie. Definitely, growing up here in the city of Buffalo my whole life, I was kind of forcefully, got to see a lot of things that, just helped me to be and sculpt me and mold me to be the person that I am today. I was fortunate and blessed to have, my grandfather and my uncles and my dad as mentors. A lot of times, a lot of our kids don't have that. So, the program that Charlie is implementing with the boys there, I think is a beautiful thing. I mean, a lot of you asked them, I worked in sports and rec for a little bit, and, I coached the basketball team, and I would say, I want you to keep a journal, you know what I mean? And these kids never left their block, you know what I mean? They didn't know how to make a tie. It was like, whoa, you know what I mean? Where's your dad? I don't know who my dad is, or he's in jail, or he passed away. So we have to break that, you know what I mean? And for those that don't have it, the ones that are here, we have to, help nurture those kids. Yeah, definitely.
Beautiful, beautiful answers, gentlemen. I appreciate that. And real quick, I feel like I'm talking to individuals rich in Hispanidad and la cultura that we all share. How do you maintain and celebrate your Latino heritage in a place that's not, we're big, we're not the biggest, but and how do you maintain that? Besides your initiatives that you do on your own, that your family men, you have kids, how did you impart those cultural touch points on them?
For me, I think it was a no-brainer. Just having it, seeing it my whole life, it was something that it was just, we're mere images of what we see growing up, right? So seeing that my whole life just transitions to me, instilling that in my kids. It went from my grandfather to my father to me, and now to my kids, and now my grandkids. When my grandkids fly in or drive in from where they live, and they're like, "Well, Papa, we want to go see the monument where Grandpa's name is on the floor." Or we want to go to the club where where they have the festival. And we want to eat. We want to go to Niagara Cafe and have some pastelillos. So it's and these are kids that are 5 and 7. But we've instilled it in them. I've instilled it in my kids, and now they're instilling it in their kids. And I think that's something that's huge that we have to do.
It's kind of like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And you see that in some of our great families on the west side, and particularly like the Olivencias. And we just need to make those trees bigger with a lot more apples falling, so that not only are they relying on their fathers, but on their friends' fathers. What they see is what they're going to learn. So the more of us out there that are doing this kind of work, that's what the kids see, and they're able to emulate that and hopefully continue on these traditions and continue to grow.
It's the communal village. I keep always saying and banging that drum, and it takes more than just it. We're big on the extended family, and I, for one, appreciate and applaud you, gentlemen, for doing what you're doing for our informal extended family out here in Western New York. I want to thank you, Charlie. I want to thank you, Wilmer, for being on with us today on Sin Fronteras, Western New York, and shining a light on what you're doing out here for not just the Puerto Rican population, but the Latino population of this city and this region. So. Thank you, gents.
Well, we appreciate that. And again, as we move towards our parade, we got a great Grand Marshal and Luis Rodriguez Sr., who's the owner of La Última Hora, who's for 40 years has promoted our community in his paper. You want to put something out there? He's kind of like, hey, send me an article, and always highlighting the positive. And going back to, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. His son is a great developing community leader with Rodriguez Construction. We've had Casimiro Rodriguez as one of our grand marshals. You see what he's done in the community. Lucy Candelario, our councilman David Rivera, Judge Betty Calvo Torres was a grand marshal, marshal. So we love highlighting all those great things in our community, and we encourage everybody to visit our Facebook page, our webpage, support our sponsors, and we can't wait to see all our Puerto Rican, Cubans, Dominicans, Argentinos, toditos.
Oh yeah, vamos para la fiesta.
Ven pa'l party.
You don't have to say that twice.
That's
We're there the first time around. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time today and for sharing your experiences with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
A great interview, Lorenzo, and a huge thank you to Wilmer Olivencia and Charlie Torres. Thank you so much for your time and coming on Sin Fronteras, Western New York. Our audience definitely appreciates hearing from you. Now, Lorenzo, oh my gosh, the Olympics. I don't know. Do you love the Olympics? I totally do. Some people are into it, some people are not, but I look forward to it every 4 years. I try to watch as much as I can, but this is definitely a fun time for me. What about you?
Oh, I'm all about it. I'm all about the Summer Olympics. I even take a peek at the winter ones, but we're in the Summer Olympics, Paris 2024. I'm super geeked up about it.
One of my favorite sports is gymnastics. Fun fact about me, when I was a kid, I took gymnastics up for a couple of years, actually. Yeah, I was pretty serious about it. I started when I was 2 years old, and I think right before we moved from New Hampshire, actually, I used to live there. I went to elementary school out there. So when I moved fifth grade, so up and through fifth grade, I was pretty serious competitor.
Things you find out on this radio program, I had no idea.
Yeah, I did, and I
You're doing
took a
the
little
vault
bit of it.
box and tumbling and
Yeah.
oh goodness.
I did some floor, I did uneven bars,
Yep.
vault. Beam was like my least favorite, and then I took a little bit more of it when we got to Orlando for a little bit, but then
Well,
got into other sports, but gymnastics is my favorite. Anyway, so anytime the Olympic comes up, I cannot take my eyes off. And I want to say Lori Hernandez, the commentator.
Yep.
For
the Final Five, member of the Final Five.
Yes. She was at the last Olympics, and she did a fantastic job.
Yes.
And fantastic job, and it's nice to see a Latino.
She's been doing spots on the Today Show as their gymnastics correspondent, and it's good to see her. I was looking at the medal count, and by currently when we've taped this, as far as Spanish speaking countries, like you have Latino countries like Brazil, but really the next up is Mexico. Mexico's got 2 medals, 1 silver, 1 bronze, but that could change by the time this airs on Saturday. But the closest thing that I sniffed the Olympics was participating in the sport of wrestling, Greco-Roman wrestling. I was a wrestler in high school.
Were you?
And yes, I was. I wasn't very good, but I had a Cuban coach, ironically by the name of Fidel, and he's a firecracker. I love that man. But he was on one of the Olympic national teams for Cuba, and has a gold medal, and he brought it one time. It was great to see. So that's where we dominate. We do very well in like judo and wrestling. So are you looking for, where's DR gonna medal?
I've been following DR, and when I'm not watching the US, I'm watching DR, what's playing, what sport are they on? And the thing is, it's rough because they give them early hours, so like 4 a.m., 3 a.m. But I've had a chance to catch a few of them. Like I saw soccer; they had a tie against Uzbekistan, which is really awesome to see. Something different from baseball, which I do love my baseball. But equestrian's up next. They have us in judo, diving. They had a male gymnast as well for the all around. So yeah, pretty diverse, I guess.
But yeah, I can't rave enough about the Olympics. I hope more people watch them. It's in a beautiful backdrop in Paris this year, France. I mean, you had surfing going on in Tahiti in French Polynesian. Like, come on, it can't get better than that. So that's I think our Bochinche for the week. We had a lot of other big hefty news that really jammed it up in the front. And once again, we want to thank our 2 gracious guests, Charlie Torres, Wilmer Olivencia Jr. Thank you so very much. Make sure you circle August 17th on your calendar because that's when the Puerto Rican and Hispanic Day Festival will take place.
Thanks for joining us. We had a blast. We hope you had a blast. Again, I'm Samantha Latshaw.
And I'm Lorenzo Rodriguez.
Hasta la próxima.
Nos vemos.
Ciao.